Hey, Audio Road listener, what is your profit per mile? How about your cost per mile? Or even your bottom line? Stop driving blind and know your numbers. Profit Gauges is absolutely simple bookkeeping specifically for owner-operators. Have instant access to business and tax reports that will help you increase your profits and keep your money in your pocket where it belongs. Sign up for Profit Gauges today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial. Know your numbers and master the journey. Visit our website at letstruck.com or call our Tribe Care Team at 855-800-FUEL. That's 855-800-3835.
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, October 11th. It's time for some trucking technology and efficiency. We'll throw in a Friday free-for-all. We'll have a little bit of fun with it. I see Joel's here with me, so I'm going to bring him in, and we'll just get started. Joel, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good. I haven't heard about Henry yet today. Have you talked to Henry?
I think he drove through the night and is sleeping. I think that's the last message that I saw, that he'll be sleeping.
Sleeping. I don't think that's on the approved list of reasons to miss this show.
You know what? I was just thinking, how lame. Like, you
Right.
really need to sleep, right?
Come on. You call yourself a truck driver? Come on.
Exactly. Who needs to do that, right?
Just grab another logbook. You'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, look, this logbook says I slept all
window
night.
sheets for, right?
Yes, that's right. This logbook says I slept all night. I'm fine.
Exactly.
I've been looking forward to today too. Last week I read a book, and I've mentioned it a couple times during the week, but I really wanted to talk about it today. Now, this is not a book anybody's going to get really excited about. It's an economics book, and it's an old economics book. It was written in 1946, and it was updated, I think, in the 60s, and then updated again in like 1977. The title got me interested. Brent Hutto is the one that kept telling me I should read this book. The title is Economics in One Lesson. And if you've ever tried to understand economics, you look at that title and you think, come on, there's just no way you can teach somebody economics in one lesson. But it's a play on words. There's one lesson that they use over and over and over to explain a lot of different things that happen in economics. In fact, it really does kind of explain economics, but it's not one lesson. It's one lesson used over and over and over in different situations. So the lesson in the book, and it really talks about government intervention into economics, or how economics itself works, and why a lot of these concepts that we use and have believed in, some people believe in forever, really aren't good for the economy if we really look at it. And the lesson that he uses is that the mistake we make is we only look, how will this economic policy impact us in the short term? We never really try to figure out what it's going to do long term. And we only look at how it affects one group of people. And that's the lesson. There's another lesson, and it's why I really want to talk about it today. But so an example is minimum wage. I've said forever there should be no minimum wage. I don't know why we need one. In reality, I think I said the other day, I think I got paid minimum wage for like 6 months. My first job, and I was only 14 at the time. Within 6 months, I got a raise. Well, as soon as I got a raise, I wasn't
Mhm.
making minimum wage anymore. So what that tells me, I could have started that job for any pay, half of what I started for. And I probably would have. Back then, it wasn't easy to get a job, especially if you were 14.
Mhm.
I could have started at any pay. I would have gotten that raise either way. The company at that point realized I was worth more than what they were forced by the government to pay me. And they just paid me more.
Mhm.
So the way
Mhm.
he does it is every dollar that gets paid to somebody in a minimum wage, if they really aren't earning that dollar, robs our entire economy. Any
Sure.
dollar that the government spends really robs our economy. Now, he's not talking about the basic constitutional reasons for our government, national protection,
Mhm.
infrastructure. Right. We're all going to pitch in and we're all going to pay for those things because we all benefit from those things. That makes sense to me.
Mhm.
When you start getting into any other government program, every dollar they give to whoever has to come from somebody else. There's no way around that. And that is really the lesson that he keeps driving over and over and over, whether it's price controls,
Sure.
wage controls, rent control, minimum wages,
Sure.
tariffs got really interesting. But he broke it down to this simple math of every dollar that runs through a program like this robs the economy. That dollar has to come from somewhere else. And then his premise is the reason that this is true is and here's why I love this premise and what we talk about on Fridays. His assertion is the only way to generate wealth from nothing, really. That's what a capitalist economy does. The only way to generate wealth is to produce something efficiently. And so it's all
I
about production and
100% agree with
efficiency.
that.
Right.
Yes. Yes. So, you know, going back to your kind of opening premise here is that, when we don't look at things long term, we do that purposely. These economists, they do look at it long term, but when they're driving a specific agenda, you just
Correct.
kind of leave that part of it out
Yep.
of the conversation to drive a specific agenda or to remain hyper focused on an individual group. They all know this.
That's exactly
Every
right.
single economist
Yep.
knows the long term outlook of this stuff, but ignorance is bliss in our case, and we choose to remain ignorant, and we don't want to look, and we don't ask at the long term because it's going to impact me positively short term. So let's just forget about that long term outlook. We're going to feel good, instant gratification type thing, and
That's
that's
exactly right.
unfortunately how our economy functions today. And for proof of this, just look at these ongoing budget resolutions that they have to keep passing to keep things, because they don't want to look at it long term,
Right.
because somebody's going to get mad, somebody's feelings are going to get hurt, they don't want to feel the pain. So let's just do these short little 6 months, 1 year at a time thing. Exactly why FEMA's in the position they're in. They spend money stupid, and they pass these short term funding bills to fund FEMA. They don't want to look at the long term picture because, quite frankly, it's depressing when you look at it, right?
Now that you are
And
exactly
and so
correct. Yep. And
I think this is spot on. And when we talk about efficiency, you couldn't be more right about this. And I've always said efficiency is your best insurance policy against the down economy,
yes,
because that is the only way to create wealth. It is the
that
only way. Going out and finding a better rate isn't always an option.
yeah,
But,
that's the
but
premise
being
of the
more
book.
efficient is
Right.
always an option.
Right. Yeah, that's the premise of the book. And
But
we talk
yeah,
about that all the time here on the show. It's why we here are hyper focused on expenses. And that's probably the biggest criticism I've gotten in the last 30 years. Oh my God, all you ever talk about is
yeah,
slowing down.
right,
No,
right,
that's not
right,
true. I
right.
talk about 10,000 ways to be more efficient. Slowing down is just the one that pisses you off for some reason. So you keep focusing on it. No, we just teach
Well,
ways
and
to be more efficient because, and now it clicked with me. Even I couldn't have verbalized this before. That is the only way to generate new money in this transaction.
yes,
is to
You're
not spend
it
it.
is. It absolutely 100%
Right,
is.
right,
And people don't like focusing on, because this is the work, right?
right.
Focusing on, because you never want to have to control yourself and have self restraint, and well, hell, I could go 65, why would I go 55? They don't want to have to do that work to figure out what makes sense on each individual run. Nobody wants to do. It's easier to put your hands on the wheel, put your foot on the floor. How many times have I heard it from drivers? I just let my mind go numb. Okay, you're going to get what you get. It is what it is. And nobody likes focusing on this stuff, and people, they get downright pissed about it when you talk about it. And I've experienced, you've experienced, and going slow is their number one thing. There is a cost to speed. You know what I mean? There just is.
Right.
Sometimes it
Right.
does make sense, and we talked about that. But you have to figure it out, and it never applies universally across the board. So it's just easier to look at things short term. You don't want to deal with the long term stuff. Ignorance is bliss, and you couldn't be more right. This book couldn't be more right. Spot on.
Yeah, and when we look at when you read this book and you start thinking about all of the ways we violate these rules, mostly with big government, and that's something else I've always talked about. I just don't think big government makes sense. I realize we have to have regulations. I get all that. But we have gone so far out of control with government alphabet agencies and just growing the government. And when you read this book, you start to realize how bad this really is, how much money we waste. And
Yes.
this idea of it really does come down to being efficient and producing something. And he even makes the point that he talks about, believe it or not, well, it's not that surprising, I guess. In 1946, we were already replacing people with machines. We've been doing that since the plow.
Sure.
And his premise in that book is the economy does not have to ever stop growing. And we're never going to put people out of work completely. Now, writing this from 1946 or 1977, when he updated it, he hasn't seen AI or some of the technology we have now.
Correct.
That's always going to be the argument. But if we look at it logically, we've been replacing people in their jobs with machines and technology for well over 100 years. And the economy got bigger every time we did it. And that's his premise. The economy will always get bigger. If you replace a human being with a machine, you still have to build that machine. You still had to build all the parts to build that machine. You had to build a factory to build that machine. And then somebody has to know how to fix the machine. And then somebody else is going to be working on upgrading the machine and making it better. And now because of that machine, there's a whole new industry that exists.
I agree with that 100%. Where I think things are beginning to change is when you bring AI into the picture.
I agree.
And it becomes self-aware, and at some point it's going to know. We're building our greatest adversary. We are building it with our eyes wide open, and we're walking into it smiling, and we're going to get our asses thumped here if we're not careful. We're already starting to build machines that don't require any human interaction.
So
it's not going to take long till AI is going to say, "Oh, look, 96% of the machines, you can't even put a human in operated if they wanted to. Time for me to take over."
Yeah. No, I've said this
will happen if we are not careful.
I've said this about AI from the very beginning. I said, look, this is a cool technology. We use it every day here. It is an integral part of what we do now every day. It is a huge time saver for us. It improves our writing. It's easier for us to communicate. We're communicating better. And I said that from the beginning, but I also said right from day one, if I were king and I could wave my magic wand, I would make this technology disappear forever. I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, because a machine is fine until it becomes self-aware.
Yeah, that's just
When the machine becomes
scary.
it's no longer a machine.
Right.
Yeah, it is scary as hell.
Yeah.
It's no longer a machine once it becomes self-aware, and we are creating our own worst enemy right here, and it's going to be an adversary that's going to know us inside and out because we built the damn thing. It's going to know everything about us, how we think, how we act, and we're going to be screwed.
Yeah. No,
we are going to be screwed.
I agree, and I think that that may be the one exception to this automation thing, because we can look back at but this one scares me.
Yeah.
This one may be the exception to that rule, and it's not because the technology would just let everybody not work. I don't believe that's the case. I believe we will still keep creating industries and things for people to do. So that's not my worry about AI. My worry is what you just said, that it becomes more than a machine.
Who are we working for?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
That's
are
my
we
worry.
working for ourselves, or are we become a slave to a machine that becomes our master? And I know it sounds goofy, but that could absolutely, without a doubt, happen.
Did you happen to see Elon Musk's press conference yesterday?
I did not.
He rolled out all of his new technology that, when he rolls it out, it's probably pretty close to being done. He isn't really looking he has that robot, that really modern looking robot thing. Well, I guess at this event, these robots were walking around talking to people and serving drinks, and he released the concept of the robo-taxi, the fully autonomous taxi. Yeah, he's into all of this stuff. I know.
Scares me. I mean,
too.
We talked about the ports and the automation at the ports, and I think the government's here for a reason. We should get out in front of this, and we should limit autonomous automation to a certain percentage of capacity. And my feeling is never with food, fuel, or medicine. No autonomous period in the supply chain with food, fuel, or medicine. In the ports, it should be limited to a certain part of the capacity, because this will screw us. We start building trucks and there's no accommodation for driver in the truck, and that's what they're going to want to do, because that cuts a lot of cost out of it.
I've said that from the beginning.
So they build this thing that has no way for a driver to interact with it. They got you by the ass at that point.
Yeah,
the AI's got you.
And
you can't go to that truck and put a driver in it and say, go drive it. You're just screwed.
We are going to go down that road because of the temptation of the efficiency side of it. I sat here one day when we were talking about this. I sat here and I tried to go through all the things that are on a truck today, because one of the arguments against autonomous, and it's another ignorant argument, it's so expensive, that's never going to happen. No, it's not expensive.
No,
this is
just the opposite.
Cheap stuff. Elon Musk sells his full self-driving package for like $4,000 or $5,000, I think. I mean, that's nothing. And we're early into that technology, and all of this technology just gets cheaper. So it's going to, and I went through all the things you could take off of a truck if there was no human being. And you start adding up the cost.
Yes.
They're going to build a truck for half.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then you take the labor component out of it, and it becomes much cheaper than a manned truck that run up and down the road. You don't have any hours of service issues. It can run nonstop. I mean, there is a lot of upside economically to it, but with AI in the mix, now it becomes problematic, because we will start to rely on that.
Yep.
And when we start to rely on that, get comfortable with it, when AI decides, okay, it's my turn to take over, we won't be able to do anything about it.
I know, and it sounds like crazy science fiction, but it's all possible already.
It does. It sounds like Terminator bullshit, but I'm telling you, the second we start engineering humans out of the equation, and we are building our own worst enemy, and he's going to knock us upside the head, and there's going to be nothing we can do about it.
You know, every time I've talked about this and I've tried to explain how we should approach and think about AI. And most of our AI right now is really just text generators that they rewrite things. I mean, it's a lot of what we're seeing right now. You can ask GPT a question, that kind of stuff. And immediately what I saw, and I don't know why I didn't expect this, probably because I still don't understand AI completely. I'm trying to, but I didn't see this until, but it was like the first day they brought out Chat GPT, and I started thinking about this. You can go back on my shows and listen. The statement I made was AI is a really generic term, first off. There's a whole spectrum. There's machine learning, there's true AI, which we haven't really achieved yet, but we're getting very close. And there's lots of different versions or instances of AI. It's not one thing. You know, Chat GPT is different from Grok. They're both using AI. The way I tried to explain it to people is you have to look at each version of AI as though it is a person. And people have wildly different personalities. And we saw it in political stuff. You know, there's all these articles. Oh, if you ask Grok this, you get this answer, but if you ask ChatGPT, you get a totally different answer. Well, what happens when you ask two people a question? That if you ask 10 people a question, you might get 11 different answers. Ask 11 different versions of AI, and guess what? You're getting 11 different answers. This isn't some standardized, all-knowing, supreme being that knows everything and it's the absolute truth. Sometimes that's how I think people look at this AI. It's not. It's just a bunch of opinions like humans have.
I think you're exactly right on the AI that we can see. What worries me is what is the military doing? Not just our military, the Chinese, the Russians, because we don't see any of that. And what we do see scares the living hell out of me. They've got an F-16 that they retrofit as an AI fighter pilot, and it's up in the air flying now, thumping the shit out of our regular pilot.
Why wouldn't it?
And that's just this is just what they're showing us.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get it. And when we start to put AI and integrate it into our military systems, what the hell is going to stop this from saying, I don't need you fools? you piss it off. You piss it off. What are we going to do?
I know.
And I know they're all sitting up there, well, we've got control of this. Yeah, I bet you do.
Right.
I bet you do.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So back to the efficiency thing. In our economy right now, what is our single biggest problem? Everybody's talking about it. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. We report on it every month. Inflation. Well, the single biggest driver of inflation is inefficiencies. I get it. It's a government thing. Government spending creates inflation, but we all play a role in it. Every time I hear somebody say, well, I could just drive as fast as I want. What the hell? I'm not slowing down. Well, you're just costing us all money. That's just creating inefficient. It is a waste. The only you benefit, and that's the other thing that he talks about in this book, and you talked about it too. These policies occur and keep happening because they do benefit somebody. The problem is they benefit small groups, not the entire economy. And if we just eliminated some of these things, the entire economy would be more efficient. And that always makes me crazy that this industry,
example,
we want to do two things. We want to beat on our chest and say, we could shut this country down because you need us for everything. And then we turn around and say, and we're just going to waste your money for you. Okay, great.
Well, here's the perfect example of this in my mind. And sometimes we talk about, well, when the government puts money into the economy, it creates inflation, and people don't understand that. So COVID money is the perfect example.
Oh,
They gave everybody COVID. Essentially, they were paying people to sit on their ass. That's
yes.
not really efficient. So prices go up because everybody's sitting around on their ass with a handful of money. And that's how you have to look at this. If
Yes.
we had to have worked our way through that, yeah, there was going to be some pain. Some people were going to go out of business. The economy would have corrected, but there would have been no inflation that's killing us all now instead of just the few that would have fallen by the wayside, right? So
Right.
now we all feel the pain
Yep.
instead of the few that should have felt the pain because they weren't running their business right. And you're exactly right with this, with the faster speed and the people that don't pay attention to their expenses, and they only say, well, I'm going to get a, they need that bigger. It's just like the government said, I need higher taxes. The same thing goes for the guy that says, I need a bigger rate. You know, they're not paying attention to their business, and they live off more taxes or higher rates, and that just keeps pushing things higher and higher and higher, and
It,
inflation gets out of control. When we don't pay attention to our expenses and our costs, inflation gets out of control because you need higher and higher and higher rates in order
yep.
to stay in business. And it's just, it's bullshit is what it is. You're exactly right. The guys that don't pay attention to this, that just brag about the big rates, they are the problem. They don't realize it, but they are the problem.
I agree. I agree. In this book, he talks about inflation, and he talks about it as though, yeah, it, he talks about it as though it doesn't have to exist. And I think
It's
about that, and
self-inflicted.
I say, wait a minute. We can look around the world. I've never seen an example of it not existing. I guess I haven't gone looking, but imagine, and I use this example. My parents bought a house a year or two before I was born. It was the house I grew up in. They paid
Mhm.
$25,000 for that house. And that was that. I mean, that's what houses
Mhm.
cost back then. And this was a decent
Mhm.
size, middle class, split level home in a small town. $25,000. Is it possible that we
Mhm.
could have run our economy and that house today would still only cost $25,000?
I don't think it is because we could not run a government 100. You have to be 100% efficient. That's not going to happen. There's always going to be a certain degree of inefficiency, and that is what I think is going to translate into inflation.
Inflation.
The
That
better
makes
we
sense.
run the government, the lower the inflation rate. But it'll never be perfect, and we'll never not have inflation. But we certainly don't need the bullshit we got going on now, where we're just handing out money, basically telling people don't go to work, don't do anything. And that's about as inefficient as you can possibly be. And that's why we have the mess that we have right now.
Yeah, well, and one of the chapters he spends quite a bit of time on it, this idea of the government creating work and creating jobs and thinking that that's good for our economy.
Yeah, no, never.
Right. And that's what he says, that
Yeah,
this is never a good idea ever. For the government to create
no,
work or create jobs is always creating inefficiencies and therefore driving inflation.
sure, absolutely. But there will always be the need for a certain amount of government. That's why we'll always have a certain degree of, like the military. We
Right.
need a military. We have
Absolutely.
to have
We
that
have to have
military,
infrastructure. Yeah.
and that will drive inflation to a certain degree, but we try to limit it as much as we can, obviously. But when you start to throw on all these other social programs for individual, well, here's a billion here. Let's go over to Ukraine. Here's a billion here. Here's a billion. Of course, all that's inflationary. Every
Yeah.
bit of it is.
Yep.
You know, it's not the most efficient way to do things. Um, can we always do things in the most efficient way? No. There are times when national security
Of
trumps
course.
efficiency, right?
Right. Right.
Because what the hell good is being efficient if somebody comes in and takes us over? So we can never be 100% efficient, but we can be much better than what we are. And in today's political terms, I don't like either one of my, clearly has a better business mind and will operate more efficiently than the other side, and that will help to bring inflation in check. I don't really like voting for either one of them, but if I have to, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go where I see efficiency rather than just this kind of let's just cater to every single group and play one group against the next and throw money at them. And, that's just an empowerment scheme for the government, essentially. Let's
Absolutely.
keep everybody
Yep.
divided and fighting.
Yep.
Let's put them all on the corn doles, essentially. Let's throw out corn to them all
Yeah.
and keep everybody unhappy and fighting, and that keeps us in power.
Yep.
And that I can't tolerate personally, but a lot of people kind of, I guess, like that attention of being the center of attention. And when I say ignorance is bliss, this is kind of what I mean. But yeah, short term it's probably great for an individual group, but long term it kills the body as a whole.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing. And it's interesting, this was written in 1946, then updated a couple times, and it's interesting that the theme that he talks about plays out. It's that idea of one lesson. It's the same lesson over and over and over. And the lesson is the only way to continue generating wealth is through production. We need another product. We need to produce it efficiently.
Yes.
And that raises the standard of living as well. And what we can see now is that we have gotten so far off track from that. I'm not sure how you bring it back. I mean, our government has been, it's now the largest employer in the country. It's the largest employer in most states. I mean, it's a behemoth now.
Right. So NAFTA was kind of the start of the downhill slide on this, when we decided, hey, we don't need industry. Let's let the rest of the world make it, ship it back here, and we'll buy widgets for 15 cents a piece. That's kind of what the thought process was behind that. So you ship out there's all your efficiency and productivity, right? You don't have it because you've shipped it. Everybody's works in a service job or something related to service. There's no efficiencies in a service industry to grow or to produce or to make or build and to really improve the efficiency, so to speak. And so that was a huge mistake. And bringing these things back on shore, I think, makes a whole lot of sense.
A good
the
analogy.
Environment here and the tax regulatory environment makes a whole lot of sense to bring this business back on shore and get productive again.
Something that kind of points this out that I've said forever. I'll get a question every once in a while, pretty consistent. I don't get it a lot, but I've gotten it consistently over the years. I want to be an owner operator, and I'm just going to rent my truck from Penske. And really what they're going to do is what we would refer to as a full service lease. And the first time I heard that, it clicked right away with me. That might be the stupidest idea I've ever heard. What is the point of a trucking company? The point is we are supposed to be the people that know how to move freight from A to B as efficiently as possible. And your efficiency is your profit. That's what we're talking about here. That's the whole concept of this book. You are the one that now needs to create new wealth by being efficient. And you just gave away the entire operation. That is where your efficiencies are going to come from your ability to buy and spec and maintain a truck that moves freight at the lowest cost possible. That's the whole point of this business. And you just gave your business to somebody else.
I 100% agree with you. I try to demonstrate that on a daily basis with Trav and Connor out running. Here's the fuel mileages you can achieve. We can drive maintenance costs down and all. And consistently, probably 80% of the people want to argue, that's bullshit. That's not the way to do it. Nobody else can do it. Then you're just plain lazy. You're just plain friggin' lazy. Because I'm telling you exactly how to do this. And you won't do it. You'll come up with 50 reasons why you're justifying your failure is what you're doing. And it is frustrating, but you could not be more spot on. It all boils down to efficiency. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't make the transition with my brother as they grew into the whole economy of scale model. I just don't believe in it. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
It doesn't click with me. I hate it. I absolutely hate it to my core. I don't know why, but I just hate it. And And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay and do my
Well,
efficiency thing with a few trucks. And
I feel exactly like you do. I hate this idea. I
Mhm.
can't imagine getting up and coming to work every day under that model. So much so that here's the other thing I've taken all kinds of criticism for. Well, if you were so smart about running a truck, you'd have a big fleet. But well, no, I was headed there. And I
Don't want a
saw
big fleet. Yeah.
I saw what was coming. I had 11 trucks. That was enough for me to see what was coming. And I decided that was not the way I wanted to wake up and go to work every day.
I 100% agree. You know, I watch my brother struggle with this stuff, and they're damn good at what they do. They just are. They're
Really
very,
good.
very good. But
Yeah, they're really good.
he hates it. I mean,
Right.
he just absolutely hates it. But he's damn good at doing it. So you know, he's kind.
Right.
They made the decision. They wanted to do it. They done it. And if he had to do it over again, I'm not sure that he would have picked the same path. But
Yeah.
you know, he's in
Yeah.
it now, so he's going to do the very best job he can do. And you know, that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But I just myself, I just like, man, I can't do this. I have a hard time accepting the mediocrity when it comes to the
Right.
efficiency part of things, and that's kind of what you have to do as you grow. You just have to say, well, I can't control everything, and okay, that guy's getting 6 miles a gallon. Well, we still have to kiss his ass to stay in the seat because that truck has to run. And I have a really, really hard time with that,
I agree.
to the point where I know I can't do. To the point where I know I can't do that. You know, I
I,
just can't.
I knew I
So I was
couldn't.
like, you know what? I'm gonna keep this family and just a few trucks, and that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree. All right. Good stuff. You
you know,
should listen to the book
that way
Economics in
when
One Lesson by
yeah,
Henry Hazlitt.
yeah, I will do that. Hey, a couple of things real quick.
Sure.
Just want everybody to know, so everybody knows I'm a Volvo guy, right? And I've done some work here with International under S13. My brother had one in the fleet for a couple of weeks. He had one of his regular drivers in it on a regular route that they run, and we've done a comparison, and it performed well. It wasn't stellar, but it was good. Has a lot of potential. I recently went down and had a meeting with them. They wanted me to do a long-term demo on it. I took the truck out and ran it, and there were some issues that they need to work through. Nothing wrong with the powertrain, more suspension and chassis. We were getting some high frequency vibrations coming up through the steering wheel and into the mirrors, and it's all stuff that I've dealt with years ago. I feel like I have a handle on what the issues were. The S13 is being offered in a direct drive optimized or overdrive optimized configuration. Most of the trucks being put out there right now are optimized for direct drive. They are still very efficient running in direct drive. My feeling is that they will be even more efficient once they can really start to use the overdrive, but they have some issues I think that they need to address before that's really going to become reality.
Got it.
So they have to refine things a little bit.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
very, very good powertrain. I want to stress that. There is no issues with the powertrain. It's more the chassis and the suspension, the drive shaft choices, and a few other things I think they're going to have to work through. I could not take the truck as it was and put one of my guys in it because they would have said, "Come get this truck." And I'm not trying to bust on. There's just
right.
some, you know, they're used to having things optimized the way that I do it.
Correct.
And it would have been very hard for me to put a driver and say, just ignore that, you know, so I'm not going to do that. So they are working through some things, and I may do a 90-day demo on it or something like that. But nothing at this point, because there were just too many issues to really get worked through there. So that hopefully will happen at some point. My brother's got the same driver that demoed the S13. He's in the new truck right now running his regular route, the new Volvo VNL. and I'm getting feedback from the driver's perspective, the International versus the new Volvo versus the legacy Volvo, and we're working through that. He just started driving, and we'll be picking up information on that. The other thing that I'm very, very happy to see, and I know me and you have talked about this. You went through the training with Volvo, and you picked up right away on the importance of engine architecture and the importance of that geometry on the connecting rod and the crankshaft and thrust loading. And, a lot of people just kind of, oh, that's bullshit. Why wouldn't every manufacturer do that? Well, I'm happy to say Cummins has Volvoized the X15. They redesigned their piston and connecting rod and crankshaft in order to get better geometry to downspeed that engine. So, a lot of people were saying, well, if it was so important, Cummins would have done it. Well, Cummins done it.
Now now what's your excuse, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would suspect that initially we're going to see a lot less carbon packing in the piston rings. We're going to see a lot less liner issues because we're not thrust loading it so hard. And, this is going to force me to see if I can demo a Cummins once these get out in the marketplace. I would suspect that we're going to see a nice bump in efficiency out of the X15 because they done what they needed to do. I'm kind of shocked that it happened.
Yeah. I'm glad
because
that
I
it's
didn't
happening.
know it was on their radar. It absolutely
Yeah.
gives people some choices
I
now
love
if
choice,
you really
right.
want to downspeed.
It-
And their initial downsped package coming out, they're going to do a 205 direct drive, which to me isn't really quite downspeeding, but it is a huge leap from where they were at.
Yeah, no doubt.
I would suspect we will see some very efficient fuel mileage numbers coming out of the new Cummins stuff once it gets out on the road. I would suspect they will be very competitive now.
Yeah.
The last one hanging out there is going to be PACCAR. So we'll
Right.
see what they do.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning, you said that I picked up on this right away, and I felt like I kind of came along kicking and screaming and struggling to try to figure it out. But I did see the potential right away. And the reason I think I saw it right away is that, the phrase, seek and ye shall find. I mean, that's all I do. It's not quite as much as I used to, but I still spend a lot of time thinking about fuel mileage, researching what's happening. And so when you're always looking, and I think it was a couple of years ago, I made the statement, I'm not sure where our next efficiencies are going to come from. You've been in that position too. You look around and you go, okay, now what are we going to do? What's next?
What next?
Right. And when I saw this engine architecture and started to understand it, I realized that's what's next.
Right.
We need to optimize this now. We now understand why this works. And like you said, International's not there yet. You're never there on the first time you do some of this stuff. It takes a long time to tweak and work things out. But I immediately saw, okay, here is a place we can now go focus and create new efficiencies.
No, you're exactly right. International has to refine things a little bit. I am sure Cummins is going to have to refine things, but they're on the bandwagon and they're moving in the right direction. They're not trying to justify some goofy ass geometry on the rotating assembly and pretending that, well, this is the greatest thing ever. And so that I'm happy to see everybody kind of moving that way. I understand that PACCAR is supposed to be coming out with a 14-liter with a lot of the same changes to the geometry on the rotating assembly. So I think even they'll be coming along here soon.
Here's the other good thing about this, why I'm excited about it. The more people working on it, the better it will become.
There is no doubt. And that's exactly what my brother said. He called me and he said, hey, would you mind doing some work for me with International? And I said, I've got no problem with it. I said, I just have to let, the Volvo people know what I'm doing. And of course, I can't go out and blow it around in social media and a million other things, but I'll do some work for them. And he said, because he goes, and exactly what you said, he goes, the more people we have working on this, the better it's going to get. And I said, I agree. And I think internally, every one of the OEMs agree with that as well. I think they will all agree with that. Nobody has a brain trust that is just absolutely superior to everybody else. Some people get on an idea earlier and get out in front of the crowd, but once everybody else kind of says, okay, that's really working, let's
Right.
focus on that, great stuff happens. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
it's also why I'm a huge believer in competition, because that's what this is. This is
Yes.
now competition, and somebody wants to make it better than Volvo did. And the more somebodies that are
Absolutely.
working towards that goal, we all benefit from that. That's why I love competition. And I think the worst
Yeah.
thing we've done in our society is to not only downplay competition, but almost try to eliminate it. This whole everybody gets a trophy, everybody did a great job. That whole mindset drives me crazy, because it goes against what we do as human beings. I think
Well,
it's just
sure.
innate in us that we improve things. And competition drives that.
Well, when we're all dumbed down to the same level, that's kind of the backbone of communism, right? You're all
Yeah,
the same.
really is.
You're all
Right.
equally worthless.
Right.
You know, that's basically what they're saying. You're all equally worth. And let's take a look at American technology versus some of the Russian technology from the Cold War era.
Oh, yeah.
We're
It's
clearly way far out in front of them.
right.
You know, and the Chinese struggled with that for a long time until they started introducing some capitalism into their communist society. And it's capitalism that's drove every bit of innovation in China. It's
Well,
not communism.
oh,
You know,
absolutely. And
so
I don't
you're 100% right. There's no doubt. You
I
know,
don't
when we're all
remember
dumbed down and the government's picking winner and losers, it never works out well.
I don't remember all the details, because it's been a long time since I read this and I haven't gone back on it, but I remember reading it, and you'll remember this. Remember the first Japanese cars that came over here?
Yes.
They were
Yes.
absolute junk.
Yep.
They were awful.
Mhm.
My God, the early Hondas
Mhm.
would rust out in one winter in Ohio.
Yep.
Yeah, it just fenders
Yep.
falling off of them. They were so bad, and they were tiny, and nobody here wanted tiny cars. We built behemoths. You know, I remember
Mhm.
doing this. There was a time, if you go back and look at the original Honda Civic and the size of it, and then remember the Olds 88?
Mhm. Yes.
It was a big car.
Yep.
There was a
Yeah.
point
For
where
sure.
the Civic ended up being bigger than the Oldsmobile 88, because the Japanese just kept building their cars a little bigger each year and a little bigger, because they realized Americans wanted bigger cars. And the American
Mhm.
cars were trying to get on the efficiency bandwagon, and they kept making them smaller and smaller. It- and but look at the
Yeah.
Japanese cars now. I mean, I don't care what anybody thinks about foreign vehicles. When it comes to building cars, we got our ass handed to us. We may have been the one that started this
Yeah.
whole thing, but we have not been competitive in building cars in a long time. Everybody kicked our ass. The Japanese first. The
Right.
Europeans always had their niche of, really super quality engineering and that kind of stuff, so they kicked our ass there.
Mhm.
Um, then along come the
Mhm.
Koreans, and the first couple of Korean cars for several years were junk too. The Kias and
Oh
uh,
yeah.
the,
Hyundai's. Yep.
and the
Yep.
Hyundais,
For
they were
sure.
awful. They were heavy. They were inefficient. They weren't refined at all.
Yep.
Look at them now. They're probably the
Yep.
best value in a car.
So
Just pure
you know
value.
that Hyundai, just an interesting thing. They went over to Europe and they wiped out Audi and BMW. They hired a shitload of
Yeah,
their
I
guys.
know. Right.
I buddies with a guy that was engineering on the car side for Volvo, and he said they hit him up too, and they done what they needed to do, and it shows that they build some pretty cool cars, and for a brand that's only been in the marketplace for just a handful of years, that's quite an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah, and the point of the story, I was going to go back. There was a guy. Have you ever heard of Edward Deming?
I've heard the name, yes.
He was like he was, they call him an American business theorist. He was an economist. He was an industrial engineer, a management consultant, and he kind of developed this theory of manufacturing, of this constant small improvement model. And he took it to American manufacturers, and they all basically laughed at him. And he took it to the Japanese. And I believe it is what changed
Oh,
the
yes,
Japanese.
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember reading about this.
Yep.
He took it to the Japanese. The Japanese, like, holy shit.
They were all over it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
went from
Yeah,
the Japanese being the worst vehicles on the road to probably now being the best vehicles on the road.
Yeah, in very short order.
Yeah.
So yes, yep.
And guess what it was all
Pretty
about?
cool stuff. Hey, one other.
It was all about efficiency.
Yes, always
You know,
about efficiency.
if you think about
sure.
it, we could make a claim that the American manufacturers were just not building quality. That was my biggest issue. It wasn't a quality product. It was not built as good as it could be built. And we now had a comparison. Look at these Japanese cars all of a sudden. These things are really becoming efficient. They don't break down. They last forever. We had a comparison. And they were not building a really good quality product. And their excuse would be, well, if we build it that good, it's just overpriced. Well, what the Japanese did under this model was you kept making these tiny little efficiency changes. And people would look at it and go, oh, well, big deal. You keep stacking those things up. It's the same thing we do on a truck.
Yes.
How did we
devil's in
get
the
to
details.
11 miles to the gallon? Well, we did it with all these tiny little steps over years and years and years. So now all of a sudden, the Japanese can build a really good, high quality vehicle and sell it for less than what the Americans are selling theirs for.
Right. Yep. It's funny. And you know, kind of speaking of this along those lines, I've got something for you that you may be interested in. So I've acquired two of my brother's used VNMs, D11s, lift axles.
Okay.
And I hear that the Pittsburgh Power people are now working on Volvo stuff. They've got all the
They want to
tools
learn it
to do that.
Yeah, they want to learn it.
And I kind of thought maybe I might send one up that way.
Oh, I like this.
Might want to talk to Leroy. So they're D11s, and in the Marine version of the D11, they go to 700 horsepower with no issue.
Right.
Same rotating internal, same head, same crank, same everything. And I'm kind of playing with the idea of maybe taking one and seeing what Leroy can do with the damn thing.
I like that. I think that would be an awesome idea.
Yeah, and maybe we all need to have a chit chat about this and see.
I'll make that happen.
We can do, because the reason that I snagged these trucks, you know, I have mentioned that I was looking at doing the nitromethane supply chain for NHRA,
right? And
we're still in talks with this. Insurance has just been a flat bastard on this because it's such high risk and it's very, very costly, and we're still working through this. But I figured, you know what, I'm going to make sure I've got all the equipment in line if the deal comes together, which I think it eventually will. It's just going to take some time. You know, I'm ready to rock and roll. So
excellent.
He pulled these trucks in from the dealer, and I've got them sitting there. Now, he may roll them into his shop and just kind of go over them because they've sat for so long, you know, make sure the batteries are good, and hoses, belts, you know, all the common bullshit that you need to kind of go through. And then depending on what my time frame looks like, we may all get together and talk about this and see what the appetite is to maybe do something here.
I like that,
because I'd like to see what they're capable of, because I'd love to be able to recommend more Volvo specific independent shops.
And here's the thing. Let's think about it for a second. Bruce has got like 50 some years experience now. He has an employee that's been there. I might get the number wrong, but somewhere around 40 some years. And you know what that guy does? Still today. I mean, it was a big part of their business originally. Still today, that guy, after 40 some years, is in a room and he rebuilds pumps and injectors. I am positive that he has rebuilt more fuel pumps and fuel injectors for Class 8 diesel engines than anybody else on the planet. There's no doubt in my mind.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I have no doubt.
So my point is,
for sure,
they can learn this. They have all the base knowledge, that depth of, decades worth of knowledge. Most of his employees have been there for several decades. So for them to learn this will not be hard. It's not like they're starting from zero.
It's quite simple.
Right.
It's quite simple. It's just different than what they're used
Correct.
to seeing. And that, I think, has always kind of been the rub. It's hard to get your mind around, but once you see it, it's very simple, the concept.
And they'll get
there's no rocket science really here.
Yeah,
for sure.
So just a quick aside, then we're going to grab a call. And I'll help make that happen because I think that's a great idea and a lot of good stuff will come out of that. You mentioned you're struggling with insurance. Do you know what my first business in trucking other than owning trucks almost was?
No.
I was very, very close to opening a truck driving school when I realized I don't want to build a big fleet. And I looked around and I thought, I don't want to build a big fleet. I'm working on it. I've looked at it. There's a lot of this I don't like. And it was mostly the model we talked about. You're just going to work on volume at that point. You just got to, and I didn't want to do that. So I thought, but I also don't want to leave this industry. I love the industry and I have knowledge. And so I looked around and I thought, well, what could I do? And one of the things I already started seeing, and this was a long time ago, the quality of drivers was deteriorating. We all talk about it. And I thought, well, if there's something I could do, it would be to train the new drivers so that they're actually trained well. So I went through the process and I had a lot done. I had land picked out. I had loans in place. I mean, I was ready to pull the trigger on this and I could not get insurance, just couldn't do it. Ohio even had a program where if you tried and you could not get commercial insurance on the open market, they had a program for business startups that you might be able to get insured through them. I couldn't even get that.
It's for this particular application, it is extremely difficult, and the few kind of half-ass quotes I've gotten that were not inclusive enough to what I needed.
Right.
Oh my God. I mean, it is stupid. But NHRA's used to these kind of numbers.
Correct.
They just completely make my jaw drop, and they look at it and they kind of shrug their shoulders and him and haw. And they're like, yeah, it's a little high. We need to work on this, or we need more coverage on this or that. And so we're working through it. Definitely. I'm keeping my fingers crossed I can pull this rabbit out of the hat, but it's, I don't like insurance companies to begin with, and I dislike them even more. I don't know. Me and insurance companies, I just
I get it.
Yeah. So
I know.
So I have Alec work on that part because I kind of lose my cool with them. I don't do well talking to insurance companies.
That's right. I'm the same way. All right. Well, Joel, we have killed the first hour of the show. I think we're going to get to some phone calls. We had Steve Crone on the line. I was just getting ready to go to his call, but he dropped, so I'm not sure what happened there. We'll go to Tennessee and talk to Zach. Zach, welcome.
Hello, fellas. I know Thursdays is normally joke day, but you two have inspired me.
Oh, boy.
There was an American car worker, a Japanese car worker, and a German car worker. They've got a competition. They give them each 3 bowling balls. They put them in a room by themselves and see what you can do with these bowling balls. Okay. So they give them a half hour, and the inspector goes in. The German guy had stacked all 3 bowling balls straight up in one tower. He goes, man, that's great. That's real good. goes into the Japanese one, and he's got the two on the bottom, and somehow he's balanced the third one in between the two, and it's sitting there like that. And the engineer or the inspector said, "Man, that's Astro great too." And then they went into that UAW worker, and I hope there's a whole bunch of them listening. Goes into the room, and the UAW broker, he had broken one bowling ball, he had lost one bowling ball, and he had one in his lunchbox he was trying to get out the door with. But anyway.
Oh, wow. Yes, sir.
Kevin had talked about using the stainless steel helmet. Well, I'm even going to take it up a notch to titanium.
Oh, boy.
That's what the SR-71 Blackbird was made out of, after we reverse engineered it from the alien landing and all that.
Yeah, right.
When you guys were talking about, when you were talking about the AI stories, there are actually movies, and maybe you've seen them, or maybe you're talking your memory. One of you was talking about the F-15 that's flying by itself. These are over 10 years ago. The movie is Stealth, and it's with Jamie Foxx, and absolutely what happened. And then the other one, go ahead.
No, you were
the other one was with Will Smith called I, Robot. And that one, the AI takes over the world. And then there was another one, I think it's called Eagle Eye. Shia LaBeouf, the guy from Transformers, that kid. Another one of those where I don't know about, I'm talking above my level like I usually do, but I don't know this Illuminati stuff telling you in advance what's going to happen. But these movies that were 10 years ago, or just watch the cartoon The Jetsons, watch some of the stuff they were doing back then in that cartoon. And what we're seeing today, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I as a kid, I was always looking forward to that day where I could push a button and a sandwich came out of the wall. That never happened, but now we have AI instead.
Well, and you wouldn't take it today anyway now because it had bread on it, so you wouldn't go to eat that sandwich anyway, right?
That's true. Now
I would.
Now, as an adult, I want to push a button and have a ribeye pop out of the wall.
Oh, now that we can agree on. That we can agree on. Yeah. Oh, one other thing. You said the phrase, seek and ye shall find. That's not just a phrase. Jesus said that.
I know.
So, and hopefully if Tony's listening, this won't get him upset, but we can agree on this one, hopefully. Yeah, that was the Son of God said that. Might want to listen to that one.
Well,
Thanks for taking my call. Have a great weekend.
All right. I'm not sure what's going on with phone calls today, Joel. I'm not sure if they were so enraptured by our conversation that they're just sitting back and waiting for more. Or what?
That could be.
Or if we're having phone issues. Did you happen to see any Aurora Borealis last night?
I did not.
They were all
did not see
over
anything.
again.
I looked. But
we didn't have any here either. And
nothing.
Yeah, they were. Yep. They were all over the place. I saw Colorado, I saw Ohio, and we had a whole bunch of crazy solar activity last week. In fact, I'm surprised it didn't cause more problems. There were some really big solar flares back to back, and then they both released CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and they were both fairly powerful. It doesn't look like we had a lot of disruptions, but we certainly got to see the auroras all over again.
Yeah. There's some guys up in Canada that sent me pictures of stuff, and it was pretty impressive for sure.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm a little disappointed. I still have not ever seen an Aurora Borealis in real life. I haven't seen one ever. And what makes me a little crazy about all these pictures, you can't see what you're seeing in those pictures with your eyes.
Oh no, yeah, you are correct. The pictures never do it justice. That is for sure. So I'm the same way. I would love to be able to go see one. Now I'm thinking I'll end up over in Sweden this winter, and we may go up to their northernmost test track. And so they call it what they call it over there, the color curtain or some damn thing, sky curtain. I don't know, but they got a name for it, and so hopefully I'll be able to put my eyeballs on it up there.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so calls are starting to come in. I was right; they were just sitting back, completely enraptured by what we were talking about.
I'll go with that.
That's right, Jeff. What's on your mind?
Yeah, speaking of efficiency, if I do a project with my wife, it ends up in a fight or an argument, and it usually ends up with, do you have to be so goddamn efficient all the time? Can't you have fun?
But wait a minute. This is fun. This is our
Yeah,
version of
for
fun.
me.
Right. Right. That's what
So
they
are
don't
you
get.
are you saying that our wives are the number one source of inflation? Is that what you're trying to say? You're blaming it all on them?
If you maybe raising blood pressure,
Yeah, for sure. There you go.
Right.
but yeah,
Uh,
because I read an article because everybody always goes, you have to be so damn efficient all the time. Well, yes, I do. Leave it alone.
Well, and
There was
you know what?
a general in the war that I think he was in the Civil War, and everybody hated him. And they asked him and said, "Why do you think everyone hates you?" He says, "Well, they never said I was inefficient. That's all that matters to me."
Yeah.
there you go.
So I'm pretty sure if I took a little bit of time and thought this through and worked on it, that I could easily carry this backward to our biology as hunter-gatherers and why men and women are different. We are different, and we should
Sure.
celebrate those differences. We shouldn't fight about them.
For
And
sure.
I don't mean couples. I mean, as a society, we're now trying to eliminate the differences between the sexes.
Right.
And that is one of the
Right.
it might be worse than the whole idea of eliminating competition. We've seen what that did to people.
Yes.
That was horrible. This
Oh.
may be worse.
Absolutely.
We are different for a reason. Let's think about something. As hunter-gatherers, we were the ones that had to go out and risk our life to get something to eat. And I've talked about this. When you watch the show Alone, we can't comprehend this idea that in order to stay alive as a human being, you had to be efficient. You couldn't waste calories. You couldn't waste energy. Yep. Isn't that the same thing we're doing with a truck? We're just saying, don't waste energy. That's mostly what we do when we talk about efficiency. As hunter-gatherers, you had to do the same thing. You couldn't just walk out of your tent and start sprinting and hope you ran into an animal and killed it. You had to be efficient at going out and finding calories without expending calories. No wonder why we are so driven as males sometimes to be really efficient. It's in our nature.
Well, it also comes down to doing it like you're hunting. Just with experience, you know where to go and when to go and where you need to be.
Right.
You just didn't go all willy-nilly meandering, throwing spears all over the place.
Well, if you did, you'd probably die young.
Yeah.
You're right.
So that's just
experience was one of the ways we became more efficient. But in order to gain that experience, you have to focus. Because I know tons and tons of owner-operators who have 40 years experience and they're nowhere near efficient. Well, why not? After 40 years, well, because they never focused on it. It was never their priority.
Right.
Here's the thing. We have created a society that is so successful as human beings, we no longer have to be efficient.
Pretty much. You can be very wasteful and still get an outcome.
Yeah. But I think that's why it's in our nature.
Just try to lighten up the mood heading into the weekend. You guys have a good day.
All right. Yeah. Lighten up the mood. Get us all fighting with our spouses.
Kevin, one of the compact tractor companies, Japanese tractor companies, and I posted this. It's called the Founder's Spirit, and his saying was, to conserve fuel is to serve mankind. And that sounds a little goofy at first, but when you really start to think about that,
it's absolutely true.
With that,
it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I just had this thought as I was talking through that it's always been about energy.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Even before machines. It was about we had to maintain an energy balance in our body or we would die. You can't expend more calories trying to find food than you can get from that food or you will die. We're managing energy.
there is a professor, and I cannot say his name right now, and I'll think of it as soon as this is over, but he had this whole theory extrapolated based on exactly what you're talking about. And he looked at people as you got further and further away from the equator, and the environment became harsher and harsher, that those people had to learn more and learn faster in order to live.
Yep.
And he's got this whole thing worked out where the closer you got to the Arctic Circle and you were still surviving, your intelligence level and everything about the way that you thought and you processed information was uniquely different than people at the equator that essentially could just walk outside, pick a fruit off a tree, or grab some rice out of the rice paddy, and they did not have to think as far ahead and did not have to work as hard in order to live. And it was very interesting, his whole hypothesis that he laid out on the brain development, and the harsher the condition that a human could survive in, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It's essentially that taken out in technical terms.
I completely agree with that. And if you think of the book or the guy's name, let me know, because I want to read it.
Yep. Yeah. Really, really cool. Really cool.
And I completely
book.
believe that.
Yeah, if I can come up with that, I'll send it over to you. Yeah.
And you always have to be careful talking like this, because I get canceled when I talk like this, but it's getting harder and harder.
Well, yes, and that's what happened to this guy. Right. He was a professor in like South Africa or someplace, and they let him go over the book.
I'm sure,
because they said, "Well, you're discriminating against the people that are from around the equator." Come on, dude. I mean, it is what it is.
We've become so sensitive to this issue that you can't talk about the difference between groups of people. And I'm the one that says, look, we're all humans. That's the first thing we should remember. We're all humans, and we're far more alike than we are different. And we should focus more on the things we agree with and not always on the things we disagree with. But we shouldn't ignore those things. We can learn from them. This isn't a criticism of people who, cultures that were near the equator. I could even say in many ways it made them lazy. But boy, you can't say that.
That was kind of his point. Is that at the equator you became, but it was great for the population because that's what you had time to do, make babies, and those babies lived because they had food. Where in the northern, if everybody would have been subjected to that climate as a species, we probably wouldn't have made it.
That is probably true, right? I agree with all those things. We should learn
from that. The people that did make it brought forth different development in their brain because they were forced to think in a different way and do things in a different way.
I completely agree with that. And here's another, we could hypothesize about this. If you took somebody out of the north at that time and put them at the equator, they'd be fine. Life would get easy. Take somebody from the equator and put them in the north, they'd probably just die.
They would not make it. You're 100% right. Yes.
Right.
Yep. And his whole thing, the whole thing of the book was the ability to think ahead. You were forced to think ahead when you had changes of seasons.
Right.
When you didn't have changes of seasons, you did not have to think ahead.
Well, it was. I spent a month in Costa Rica, and it would have been interesting to spend an entire year there because I grew up in Ohio. You had 4 seasons, and things were distinctly different in the wintertime than in the summertime. The weather was wildly different, and the length of the day was wildly different. Well, it never dawned on me. I would have known it logically if I would have thought about it. But to go down and experience a place where year-round the sun comes up at 6 in the morning and it goes down at 6 at night, and the weather hardly ever changes. That's year-round. That's a very, very different way of life.
Yes. And when you get to looking at, cultural differences, so let's go down to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, where it's just customary to do siesta. It's a more laid back way of life than, say, a Viking up in Scandinavia that was dealing with, how many degrees below zero and trying to find their next meal. They didn't have time for siesta. You know what I mean? You had to go out and kill something or you were going to die. So
what was that?
Pretty cool stuff.
That you just reminded me of that poster from like the 60s or 70s, and I think it was the vulture sitting up in the tree, and the saying on it was, "Patience, my ass, I'm going to kill something."
Yeah, there you go.
We don't have time for
There you go.
3-hour afternoon siestas. I have to go find something and kill it so I can eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
it created very
sure.
different personalities.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
100%.
Let's get to some phone calls. Let's go to Nebraska. Brad, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks. Hey, talking about AI and efficiency and all that stuff, I could tie it all together.
Okay.
Yesterday during the solar flares, my friend who's a farmer, they have self-steering tractors run by GPS. Well, those GPS is screwed up for about an hour and a half yesterday.
Yeah.
Due to the solar activity.
Yeah. So
what happens to the autonomous truck running down the interstate?
Let me help you out here. You mentioned a symptom as the cause. It's not the solar flares that caused his tractors to go wacky. What caused his tractors to go wacky is the same thing that caused the solar flare itself, or the reason why we can see the results of the solar flare. This can get a little confusing, but what's happened and why we can see all this solar activity when we never used to be able to is the North and South poles are moving. They're moving a lot. Not like when we hear, oh my God, the shoreline changed by a half an inch over the last 30 years. No, the poles have been moving like 20 some miles a year for many years now. And it's the magnetic poles that we use to navigate. We're losing birds. We're losing all kinds of animals right now that are struggling to navigate properly because the poles are moving.
Yeah, I think I can make you feel a little better, though.
Okay.
I'm a private pilot, and Magnetic North has been on the move for a long time. Back in '97, Epley Airfield in Nebraska had to change its runway heading from 16 to 17.
No,
because
I
the
get it.
Magnetic
Right.
North had moved enough.
Wait, why is that supposed to make me feel better?
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to be positive. It's Friday.
Because if we look historically, this has happened before. It doesn't happen overnight. It occurs over years and sometimes decades. But ultimately, if the poles could potentially completely flip. The North Pole could end. But when it does, you want to talk about climate change? That's what really drives climate change. It's not really the human beings. We have some impact on it, obviously. But the bigger impact really is our space weather.
Oh, definitely. I'm also a ham operator. And right now, we've had the best propagation of signals that we've had for years, but we're at the height of an 11-year cycle.
Right. Yeah.
And so
this whole idea of
it's been a lot better.
The poles moving is kind of scary, really.
Yeah, I think the big problem with that is that the what do they call it? Your radiation belt or whatever, the magnetosphere collapse. Whatever it is that's created by the protection around the Earth will collapse, and it might take a few years for it to rebuild itself.
Well, that's why
flips,
we're able to see these auroras now. It's not that these are unusually powerful solar flares. They're not. We've had these forever. The reason we can see it now is because we are losing that protection.
Yeah, I do remember seeing auroras like this back in the early 90s down in Nebraska, but it was at the height of another solar cycle.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right.
There was a power outage up in the Northeast, like in 1989 or 90.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yep.
We've had some X-class flares before. But that might also show that this has been it's an ongoing process. I'm afraid of that quick flip. It takes me a while to lean back in my chair at the bar, but there's that point where you reach all of a sudden your point of no return.
Yeah, you're done. Yep.
Hey,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, so we get our whole society built up on AI, and then we go through
Mother
something
Nature
like this.
Mother Nature gonna take it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're
So it's just gonna
talk about the
flip the poles. Yep.
yeah. If you this last year, the Air Force did a simulation with an AI running a drone, and they threw a curve at it. The drone was already in its mission, and they said, "You cannot destroy your target. Return to base." Well, the drone didn't like that. It was programmed.
Didn't want to. Yes.
Complete.
Yes, I heard about that, and it did not want to come back.
You mean?
Well, first it turned around and it just trying to remember in what order that it did it. In the simulation, it went over and destroyed the communication tower, so it couldn't receive an order to not go destroy the target.
Yeah.
And when they turned that around, it turned around and it attacked the operator. It turned around and attacked the operator base first for giving them the bad command. And then they said, well, you can't attack the operator, so it went and attacked the communication tower. It had reasoned enough that, well, if I can't get the command, then I don't. I can still go destroy my target.
So
that scared the hell out of me. The Air Force gave a press conference on this.
Here's something scary.
Yep, I remember hearing about that.
If we think about the big pattern we've been watching all around us, and it seems to be speeding up, the big pattern is we are making people dumber and machines smarter. That's a really bad pattern.
That's kind of how you control populations and enslave them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make them stupid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, speaking of which, I'm going to do something I'm pretty sure I've never done on the air before. I'm not even sure if this is going to work. I was just talking about the fact that there is this push. There's no doubt about it. Nobody would convince me that this isn't on purpose to kind of homogenize the sexes, right? And this isn't all that new. We can go back. Wasn't it like the 90s that term metrosexual came around?
Yeah.
And wasn't that guys that like to groom more than guys usually started shaving their body hair and I thought that was a little weird back then, and now we've taken it a long way. They claim this is a Kamala Harris ad. I just saw this morning right before the show, and I got thinking, this is exactly what we're talking about. I'm going to play this. I think you're going to be able to hear the audio. It would be better if you could see the video too and see the people in this video. So if you go to, if anybody's on X, go to my page, you'll be able to watch the video itself. I'm going to play the audio. Let me see if anybody can hear this. This is a political ad, by the way, for Kamala Harris for president.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500 and braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
That has to be the most cringe-worthy ad I have ever heard. Could everybody hear that, by the way?
I could not hear it.
You couldn't hear anything?
I couldn't hear it, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody listening on the app can hear it. I probably didn't direct the audio right to get it through the phone system, but
Gotcha.
it's this ad where, and it's long, it's 1 minute and 34 seconds, where it's all about I'm a man. That's the whole point of the funny thing is most of these guys don't really look all that manly. A couple of them were okay, but and the one about I'm man enough to rebuild a carburetor. I eat carburetors for breakfast. Give me a break. Come on. It's there's all these lines about, well, I'm a man because I do this. They actually said I'm man enough to eat my steak rare. Oh, please.
Jesus Christ.
And then it ends with I'm man enough to love a woman, and if a woman wants to, be president, then it is awful, absolutely awful. And it's what's wrong with us trying to make the sexes the same. We're not the same. We shouldn't be the same.
Right.
We shouldn't celebrate this idea that we're trying to be the same.
You know what?
Go ahead. What's that?
Oh, so they had a whole panel of biologists, right? Because I was told I couldn't explain a woman unless I was a biologist. So I'm assuming it applies for men too.
Well, the biologist can't explain. I mean, if you actually use biology, it's really easy to explain. It's once we get away from biology that it all falls apart.
Yeah,
that is funny.
Being facetious.
Yeah,
and,
no,
so, when you talk about,
since you guys couldn't hear it, go listen on my page, because it is. I can't believe that is a real political commercial.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that it's out there because she's upside down with men really bad, and so it's probably legitimate, and it's some goofy person's idea of how to attract guys to vote for it. It's not going to work, but okay.
Did you see her drinking the beer on TV?
I did not. I've heard about it, but I didn't actually see it.
It's really cringeworthy too. And here's the thing: they even tell us how bad this is because they worked out ahead of time what beer it should be, and they say that. Come on, you're really going to tell me that Kamala Harris requested a Miller High Life specifically? Come on.
Yeah, blue collar beer.
Right. Yeah. Come on.
Sure she did.
Yeah.
Milwaukee. Yeah. Okay. Jesus Christ. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Can I offer a theory before I go here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You're talking about AI. Maybe it's just like in Chat GPT and Grok right now, but the ones that you can't see, I kind of have a theory that. Because everything in government, everything seems to be operating really, really nonsensical. And I wonder if they're not following, if there's an AI program that's directing things.
Oh, well, I wouldn't be surprised. You might be on to something. All right. Hey, speaking of calls, we must have touched a nerve because the calls just exploded. So we should probably start getting to them. Yeah, let's go to South Carolina. Terrence, what's on your mind?
Oh, man. What's up, Kevin? What's up, guys? That was hilarious. If you listen to that,
wait till you watch
if you listen to all the different voices, I know. But if you listen to, so that's what I want. That's what I'm doing when I get home. But if you listen to all different, there was different. There was a black voice.
Right.
You had all different voices. They had a southern voice.
Correct.
So all they're trying to do is just touch on every, demographic they can hit.
Right. Right.
But it was.
Yeah.
Here's another thing too. I don't know if you knew this, that I'm a big Howard Stern listener. I'm beginning not to like him anymore because of his political views and all that shit. But he interviewed her, Kamala Harris,
right?
And she sounded even stupider than no, because all she kept doing was like, I should say, she was more or less kept talking to Trump, and it's like, talk about what you're going to do. If you want to try to capture another audience or someone, you know, like all she did was talk about what he did and he did. And it's like, what are you gonna do? What if you?
Correct.
And then she has the nerve to say, "I've been to the border." She was to the border one time.
Yeah, she should
It's
probably
just like
not not necessarily a question if you've been to the border. It's what the hell did you do when you were down there? That's the question.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
just, it's a little crazy.
Unreal. That ad, I'm listening to it. Did you hear the part about I'm a man to eat my donuts? Did you hear that?
I didn't even understand that one. What was that all about? I know my donuts or
baby.
something. It was even a weird line.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
what does
I
that
can
even
pick
mean?
my donuts. Yeah,
Yeah. What was the other one?
All right. I just wanted to let you know. I obviously knew that, but it was just picking a genre. That was just hitting all demographics there.
There was another one there, and it was I forget what the guy was saying, but he was like, I can do this all day and then braid the shit out of my daughter's hair. What a stupid
line. Yeah.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
All right, I'll let you go. Someone else get in there.
All right.
Later.
Jesus.
All right. Let's go to Mississippi. Tom, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hey guys. I was going to tell you that book that you were trying to remember. It was by Robin DiAngelo. Miss Jit.
Which book?
I can't. I was going to make a bad joke. I can't do
okay.
it.
Never mind then.
All
right.
The book. Right. Yeah. I just can't do it. Was that a White Dudes for Harris ad?
It doesn't.
No,
because he's right. They had several ethnicities in there, and you know.
Okay.
But for the most part, I'm just going to say it. They were not manly looking men. There were a couple exceptions. In fact, the guy that said he'd braid the shit out of his daughter's hair with a stupid line, he at least looked like a male human being. He had some muscle tone to him, and he was pretty. But some of the other guys, I just have to say, they were soy boys.
Well, you know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man rules, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got to look at this. You got to look at the rest of them. They pick the most manly they can find. I was going through Omaha yesterday or the day before, and there was a big cat dealer off to the north side of the interstate, and they had about, I don't know, probably 6-10 guys out there, man, I don't know, but with the big old cranes, and they were hoisting a Trump Vance flag that I didn't see the whole thing yet, you know what I mean? But the way that the cranes, they had those cranes that were going up there, you know, like maybe 75, 80 feet.
Yeah.
They're big, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how big that flag's going to be, but I did pass two. I've been trying to keep a running count, so I passed two Harris, whatever the other guy's name is, yard signs.
Walls.
Yeah.
Walls. Harris Walls. So that's a third yard sign. You know, the little tiny ones, and then you know like I told you the other day about the cornfield that guys somehow made a 100-foot tall Trump sign out of that.
Yeah.
And between this and the cat guy, I just don't get it. The cheating's going to have to be unbelievable with these people this time.
Well, after watching that video, I'm starting to get a little concerned if my testosterone levels aren't high enough, because I've never used the phrase, I eat carburetors for breakfast.
Hey, have you seen any of the YouTube videos where the guys are putting the Trump signs in their front yards when they're they live in a liberal area, and then they're running electricity to them?
Oh, yeah, I have seen that one. Yeah. So when they try to steal the sign, they get zapped. I have seen those.
And they electrify them. Oh,
Yeah.
my God. Just the sound they make, tell me that doesn't sound pretty feminine anyway. But that's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
God, I'm going to get more of those.
All
right, that's all I had.
All right. Good stuff. Let's go to Minnesota. Chris, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Tuesday, when I was listening to the recording, you talked about the scale start battery, saying it was $2,000. It's not even $1,000.
Oh, really? Why did when they
I
first
sent you all
brought
the
that one over?
information about it too.
Yeah, and I've got it. Thank you for that, and I'll go through it. When they first came over, and we were trying to become a distributor because they had no distributors here, the retail price on that was like $2,100.
I believe it's $975 right now.
So
where I'm
that's
gonna get mine
really
at, and
right there at the same price that the start module used to be, the Maxwell, and it's a better product. That's awesome.
oh, I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
it's like every time I hear you talk about it and go with a different price, I'm like, ah.
Well, like I said, when they first brought it over here, if we were going to wholesale it, we were going to have to retail it at 2,000 plus.
Because I think some of the pack car dealerships have it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so that is standard equipment on the new Volvos. You've got your choice between 3, 4, or 6 batteries, and they all have that scale start on the new 24-volt system in the Volvo. So it's
Joel, you know what
standard.
I love about that? Every now and then I get something right. I think I got this one right. I've been saying since I knew about the Maxwell over a decade ago, I don't know why all trucks aren't built the way Volvo is now building them.
Right. No, you're exactly. Took them a while. Yep.
It made so much
All right,
sense to me
so-
when I saw it. You should have a start module for your starter. That's it. And then you can dedicate the rest of the space you have to more capacity of batteries. I mean, it just made so much sense to me.
Yeah, well, because
For sure.
I'm going to be purchasing mine within the next couple of weeks and having a shop putting it in. Now they come with a 12 volt and a 24 volt. Which one for an 060 series?
Well, you'd have to have a 12.
You've got a 12 volt system, so
Right.
you're going to need a 12 volt.
You
version,
have to have a 12
The 24 volt,
They-
or the newer trucks are going to 24 and even to 48 volt. So,
but on the new trucks,
that's why you'll start to see that.
They also have to have the infrastructure to be able to step down to 12 volts.
They do.
Right,
It does.
right.
Absolutely. Yep. They
So-
can do. It's a 12-24 hybrid system. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, we have to remember we're
Right.
still hooking up to trailers that are 12 volt. There's still tons of 12 volt components on the market. So the new trucks now can step up and down. The old trucks wouldn't have that ability. So you would have to go with the 12 volt in yours.
Because I know every 2 years I'm having to replace my batteries, and I'm just good. I finally found this. I'm like, good. I'm going for it, and I'm going to have one start module and 3 AMGs
Perfect.
put in the line, so I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about anything.
AGM. AMG is a Mercedes.
AGM.
High
Sorry.
performance Mercedes. Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks for the call. Thanks for that. That's interesting that the prices come down on that so much. And I love the fact that Volvo actually builds the truck like that now. It just makes so much more sense to me.
I am assuming the price probably dropped when Volvo picked it up as
Oh,
a
you're right.
standard equipment thing. So
You're right.
so now they can scale their manufacturing for the United States market. So
Oh,
I'm
you mean-
assuming that's what's going on there.
You mean somebody created some efficiencies?
There you go. There you go.
And now we all get a great product at about half the price that it was just a couple years ago.
Correct.
And now we can
Correct.
all be a little more efficient,
Yes, there you go.
because if
We
this
can all
is
contribute
done
in bringing the inflation rate down, right?
correct, if this is done properly, the way Volvo's doing it, it will lower the overall cost of ownership on that vehicle.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
Did you know, and I don't know if I told you this, but they eliminated 50% of the wiring and electrical connections on the new truck.
That is huge. I can't believe that isn't being talked about more.
Well, they do, but sometimes I just wonder the marketing people that said you need to be telling
That's
people about
huge.
this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to get details on it, and I'm gonna start pushing that out there. That is a big deal because it's
Really big.
one of the complaints that a lot of people had with the Volvo. Is, you know, there was electrical gremlins, and so they really listened and applied what they learned in the new truck, and that's part of the reason it went to 24 volts. The computers can do more with less wiring, and it's just it's a cool setup, no doubt.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let's go to Florida. Giovanni, welcome.
Yeah, how you doing, guys?
Good.
Here's a question for Joel. I got a VNL 2020. It's a VGT. And I got the 267 rear with the overdrive transmission, and it's a 6x2. The automatic weight transfer, you know, lifter or axle. Okay, and I drive 60 mile an hour all the time, and I do the RPM about 1050, somewhere there, about 1050, 60 mile an hour. And I've been doing my average 9.1 since I got it, about 60,000 miles. So here's the question. I like to improve it, you know, downspeed a little bit more. So it got a low tires all around, low pro 22.5. What if I put on my drive axle tall tire, only on the drive axle, 11R 24.5? It'll work.
I do the exact same thing during the 2017 run on less. I actually put a 24.5 tall on there to drop that rear axle ratio. The final overall ratio, it doesn't physically change the rear axle ratio, but the revs per mile definitely changes. It will work as long as you keep your speed down and you get the right tire. Now, a lot of people will tell you that, you know, the smaller tire has less rotating mass, and that is true, but there's always trade-offs in this. I would do that as long as you're not going to use it for more speed and expect better fuel efficiency. As long as you're maintaining the same speed, you're going to drop probably to, I don't have my calculator open, but you're probably going to drop to 1,000 RPM. So every 100 RPM is 1.5%. You're probably going to pick up 0.5%, maybe a little bit more than that by doing that. And is yours a lift axle truck?
Yes.
Yeah. So if it's a lift axle truck, it's going to give your lift axle a little more clearance. My recommendation would be to keep some symmetry is to do the steer tires also. So you're not setting at an angle, because that can screw with your, you know, everything's calculated on pinion angles and crank angle and all that. And we kind of like to keep that truck set and level if possible. And so I would do the steers as well.
So what about the dead axle, the liftable? Can I leave it
the same
low?
Leave it the same.
20?
Yep. Leave it the same size. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
And it'll give you more clearance on that axle. And I've run them for years that way when I want to kind of get an idea for how much a ratio change is going to impact things. And I got tires sitting around, I'll do that. And you get it does work. You will get an efficiency gain. The problem, just remember, you're going to be tempted to go faster because it's going to feel better. And then that's when all that rotating mass and the extra weight will start to kick your ass the faster you go. But if you moderate speed with that taller tire, you will most likely see an efficiency gain on that.
Okay, and the transfer way gonna work okay. The automatic transfer, you know, that to the drive
It works
axle.
just fine. It will work just fine. The only thing you may have to do is your ABS system. It may require you to put in a different value on the tire sizes, because it's going to say, oh, your tandem's not spinning at the same rate and you're dragging a tire, and it may flash something up. So you may have to They may have to do that on the ABS system, tell it that it's a different size tire between the two. But it does work. I've done it, and I think the guys in the shop program that in when they do it, the different sizes on the axle. But it's absolutely doable. I've done it multiple times, and it works.
Okay. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I want to see if I can get a little bit more.
Yeah, just so everybody understands, the reason it doesn't work as well on a 6x4 is because you have to change all of the tires, and then you've got a lot of extra rotating mass there that he doesn't have on the 6x2 when he's just changing one set. So you can squeeze some efficiency out of that 6x2 by not having to change all 8 of the tires to the tall tire. So that's why you can get away with that on a 6x2, and it doesn't always work on a 6x4.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Sure.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Illinois. Mick, welcome.
Hey, real quick, you had a caller a couple weeks ago, I think maybe was having problems with his batteries and running a tarp, and they weren't lasting. I don't think it has anything to do with that tarp at all. I ran a straight dump truck for years, and there were times when I was running that tarp 4 or 5 times an hour and never had a problem. My batteries would last 4 or 5 years. So I think he's got something else going on there, electrical issue. I wouldn't be spending any money trying to rig up a different system, trying to isolate batteries just for that tarp. It's just
based on the information we have, I would not agree with you either way. I'm not saying it is the problem or isn't the problem. The thing we have to remember about battery life, there are a ton of variables here. Yeah, you might run the tarp, but you may not have 37 other hotel loads that this guy has in his truck. So we can't make that comparison. I will tell you that absolutely a tarp operation, electrical tarps or lift gates, are hell on lead acid batteries. It's a horrible setup to try to run something like that on lead acid batteries. So we don't have enough information to know that the tarp is the only problem. But I don't think he has any mechanical issues that have to be fixed. I just think he has a truck that is using way more hotel load than he's able to deliver with lead acid batteries.
Well, his hotel load would be next to nothing when he's running the truck, in a dump truck application.
Right, but
maybe at night when he's using his microwave or whatever, yes.
Well, wait a minute.
The tarp itself and the truck's running and the alternator's running, I don't think those tarps run off of
you're missing
maybe 8-gauge wire, 6-gauge wire.
You're missing a point.
I mean, they don't pull much of a load.
Every time that tarp moves, it's pulling electricity. And again, I'm not saying it's the only problem. Of course, you could run a tarp all day long on lead acid batteries. But combine that with what we see now, and you say there's not much load going down the road. Well, sure there is. His refrigerator might be running. He might have a refrigerator freezer in there. He might have Starlink going. He's probably got Wi-Fi. He's got GPSs and radios and cameras, and the truck itself has 87 computers now. And when we start looking at
your point,
go ahead. Yeah.
To your point, what we had learned on this, and we learned this years ago. So we had all the right batteries and everything kept dying, similar to what you're explaining here. And we had all this stuff running. And what we found out was with the size alternator we were running, the truck wasn't running enough hours in a day to bring the batteries back to full charge.
Yep.
And so they would kill themselves in a hurry. We had an alternator issue, not a battery issue.
Right.
So we went from a 160 to a 320, and that solved a lot of it. Then the next issue we had was totally unrelated to everything else, was the batteries were in a position where they were taking a lot of engine heat. And that heat was impacting the way that the batteries would charge and discharge. And we ended up taking the internal cover off the batteries behind the fairing to alleviate some of that heat issue. And that, between the two of those, really, really helped solve a lot of the problems that we were having battery wise. So
what are we?
And then of
Well,
course
that's what I'm saying. There's
batteries,
something else.
cycle batteries. There's something else probably at work there. Yes.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well,
There's something else going on with that truck.
Hold on. There's all kinds of things going on that are a factor. That's my point. All we're talking about here, again, we're back to managing energy. And when you get this mindset that when it's going down the road and the alternator's doing all the work, well, that's not necessarily true. Every amp that goes out of that alternator to run something is not going to charge the battery properly. So again, we can't create energy out of nothing. We're only creating so much energy. And if we're pulling more energy all day long than we're creating, we're going to kill our batteries. And it doesn't necessarily mean that something's broken. It might be a design that, well, this design used to work fine. Our batteries used to get hot, but they still lasted. That's because on that truck, you weren't pulling the kind of loads you're pulling now. This is just energy management. And if we're killing batteries, something can improve this. And the improvement for him clearly was, there might be other things we could improve, but get rid of those lead acid batteries. You have too many hotel loads. These batteries are being discharged and recharged too much for a lead acid battery. So an AGM is an upgrade. It will help. There might be 10 other things we could do too.
Yep. One of the things that we found on when we talk about lead acid and AGM, so there are deep cycle lead acid along with deep cycle AGM. And what we had found was, we looked for the heaviest battery, deep cycle battery we could find. And regardless if it was lead acid or AGM, they would both last longer in a situation that you're describing. AGMs don't tolerate high heat well. Lead acid doesn't tolerate cold well. So, we would see failure rate throughout the year fluctuate on either, you know what I mean? So this gets very complicated very quick. But in general, what you're saying is correct. In general, an AGM is an upgrade, but that upgrade, you may not get the full benefit of that upgrade if you have an undersized alternator, undersized. There's a million other things. And so I think we're all kind of in agreement here. There's a lot of things that could be wrong. And we could speculate till the sun goes down on here. And without that truck in front of us, it's very hard to, put a finger on exactly what's happening there.
Joel, you've dealt with this a lot, and I think we probably have talked to or worked with the same company on this. One of the first real applications of solar on a truck and trailer was to run lift gates.
Yes. That would be a very, very good option if they have room to put a solar panel. Every truck, in my mind, should have a solar panel on it.
I agree.
I
agree.
Excellent for us, increasing battery life and helping to finish off charging a battery if you are a little undersized on your alternator. Even the pulley size on that alternator can impact. Are we getting we just had a guy, engineer in from Lee Neville to help us fine tune and optimize our system. And, they look at every little thing like that to help make things better. So it's very complex. It's not always easy to put your finger on it. A battery upgrade could possibly help. But if there's other serious issues, he may upgrade it, go do a damn thing. The batteries are going to help, but you need to make sure everything else is optimal as well to get the full life out of this thing.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and these lead acid batteries are getting pretty cheap these days, and even cheap in price. You can get new ones from PACCAR for like $75 now. It's crazy, but I don't think they last but a year or two. Hey, Joel, you had mentioned you had mentioned several months ago about some lithium batteries that were coming out that were going to be very high capacity. Any more word on those?
We're still working through details on this. It's a company out of New Jersey that's bringing this technology over, and this is a contractual thing, signing non-competes and what we can talk about, what we can't talk about, and there's a lot of things in process on this. And so I don't have anything at the moment. I do not have that particular battery in any of the trucks yet. Now, we do have some other manufacturers' batteries out there, and this is why we had the Lease Neville engineer in. We put this high dollar, I think it was through Dragonfly battery bank in, and it wasn't working any better than the AGMs that we had. I mean, it just was, and we knew that it should, obviously. This, and so we had to work through a bunch of things, and we did finally figure. It took us a couple of weeks with an engineer down there almost every day to figure out what in the hell we were doing wrong. And it came down to the pulley size on the alternator. We needed a bigger alternator than the 320. We had to go to a 380 with a smaller pulley size to spin the damn thing faster, because we've downsped the trucks to such a point the alternators weren't spinning fast enough.
There's something I hadn't even thought of. That's a good point.
Yeah, and he was stunned. He's like, "Holy shit! You're running down the road at 900 RPM. The alternators aren't spinning fast."
That's a really good point.
So we really had to work at this. Yeah, it was crazy.
There's a lot of variables with batteries and electricity and running bus bars and daisy chain. I've got lithium batteries for my house set up, and something as small as using a small ring, the really small ones in between two connections to get a voltage readout, it was screwing up everything because the voltage drop in that ring terminal. They're very, very sensitive. You got to be careful with what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I am not an electrical engineer. I try to follow these guys along, and I watch what they do when we have them in. And fortunately, we've got a very good relationship with a very talented guy at Lease Neville, and he's been just super helpful. But a lot of people's answers, well, just upgrade the batteries. It's not always going to be that easy, and don't always assume the OEM got it right, because a lot of times they don't.
Well,
and
we just talked about a great example.
It's been a struggle.
We just talked about a great example of why the OEMs don't get that. We know they don't. It's because of the economy. It's pricing. There's all kinds of reasons. We've talked about if they built the best truck they know how to build, it would cost us $500,000. No doubt in my mind.
Sure.
And I've talked about, you could improve everything on a truck. Everything. If you put your mind to it, there's a way to make everything on the truck better, but you can't afford it. I mean, things just, it doesn't work that way. But we know that there is a better battery setup that's been around for at least a decade, and it's just now coming into production, the start module. I mean, that one thing alone is a huge upgrade on our battery system, and it's just now becoming production.
Well, and going from 12 to 24 volts on an alternator is a huge thing too. I mean, that's a big deal. And so they're very interested in getting their hands on one of these new trucks to see what we can go through and optimize on the 24 volt system, if we can do things better. But there's a whole lot still in play here. I know people love the exotic chemistry on the batteries, and they automatically assume, oh, look, he's got the new chemistry in the batteries, it's going to be great. It doesn't always work that way. There's other things involved that you have to have right to get the optimum life and performance out of those batteries, and we don't always have that on trucks.
No doubt. Hey, here's some interesting info from the Tesla event last night, the robot event. So they debuted three things: a cyber cab. So this is an autonomous cab, and like taxi cab. The Optimus robot, which is just like, a robot, like we know robots to be, and a robo van. Those are the three things that they kind of unveiled. Here's some, and this goes back to what we talked about. Autonomous technology is cheap, really cheap. This thought that people think we won't have autonomous trucks because of the cost is completely wrong. This cyber cab, you'll be able to buy one of these things for around $30,000. This is a fully autonomous vehicle that is going to be used as a cab. You'll be able to buy it for $30,000. They're claiming it has an operating cost of about 20 cents a mile. It will have robotic cleaning and wireless charging. It will be in production before 2027.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a cab that
Yeah,
a taxi that pulls up in front of your wherever you are, and the gull wing doors open up, and you get in and sit down, and it drives you where you're going to go.
You know what? I don't know that I would get into one, not because I'm afraid it wouldn't work, but just because I don't like the concept of this bullshit. I know I love technology, and you know, but there's something about this is just plain wrong.
I agree,
and I don't know how to put it into words yet, but it's just wrong. We're eliminating ourselves.
Well, here's the next one. Listen to this: the Optimus robot. Now, this isn't, you know, for the average middle class family. It's just not. Upper middle class, I could see some people absolutely doing this. The Optimus robot will cost between $20,000 and $30,000. Now, for a car at $30,000 that could go out and make money, that's nothing. That cost is not prohibitive at all. I'm shocked by that cost. To drop $20,000 or $30,000 on something we've never even had before, that's a much bigger stretch. You know, we need a car. We're going to buy a car. So if I could buy this one, it might make sense. The robot, this is a stretch.
Of course, but you see what's going to happen with this. It's not a stretch, because here's what's going to happen.
That's where I was going.
Upper middle class, married. Yep. Okay, now the wife can work. She doesn't have to come home. Robots take care of the kid. Now we can't live without this. Then pretty soon, now this robot shows up walking a beat as a cop. Now they're all over the place, right? They're working security in the stores. They're doing all the things that, you know, now we've got a problem. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I don't either. As much as I'd love to garden, there's one thing about gardening I'm getting better. I'm getting to the point where I just have to learn how to enjoy it. I hate weeding. It's just like, it's so unproductive, and you just have to do it over and over. Well, if I could buy a robot that would weed for me, oh, hell yes. I'm in. So they're going to suck us right into this. Yeah, and this
you come out to your garden, and that robot standing guard is going to shoot pesticide in your eyes and not let you get to your garden. That's going to be the problem. It's going to get a command from AI somewhere that says, "Hey, don't let that guy in that garden."
That's right. Yeah. And then finally, they unveiled the Robo Van. You got to see this thing, man. Is it wild looking? Can transport up to 20 people. And can also be used to transport goods. 20 people, that's a pretty good sized van. I mean, that's a lot of people to move around.
Yeah, it sure is.
Again, totally autonomous. There is no timeline on that one. You know, one of the things I was going to say on you know, this book on economics and, you know, efficiencies are the only way to create new wealth. And he talks about, I forgot all about this one. It's a pretty good lesson. He talks about this idea, this goal of total employment. It would be so great, because we always talk about unemployment. It's a problem. If we had everybody working, that would be like the ultimate goal. But then he goes through the fallacy of that. And when you start to think about some of these things, it becomes so outrageous. How did we get suckered into some of these things? I made the statement, I could make freight rates go way up, and we could employ almost unlimited numbers of people in trucking. All we have to do is make one change. It's really simple, too. I don't know why we don't do this. But why don't we just limit all freight movement to nothing bigger than a Class 4 truck?
Yeah, there you go.
Wouldn't rates go through the roof, and we'd have to employ hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
Why don't we do that?
But it becomes that becomes inflationary because it's not efficient.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, if we went just the opposite way, like they do in Europe, up to 66 tons, and now that becomes deflationary, that kind of offsets.
But we fight.
You know what I mean? But right. We fight what is deflationary in favor of inflationary stuff, and it's a little It's a little nuts.
Hours of service. We actually argue because we want to work more. But if we worked less, we'd all get paid more.
Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't be as efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be good for us.
Right.
It's not good for the overall economy.
Right. Right.
All right.
For sure.
Let's go to Las Vegas. Ron, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, I got in. I just said I wanted to talk about music, so they let me in. Morgan let me in. So I was thinking about this Ohio band called the Black Keys from Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
And last week when I was giving you your on-air piano lesson, the next thing I was going to go to was the Black Keys are a pentatonic scale. And all you got to know about playing the piano, this is how you do it, Kevin. You sit down there, all 5 fingers on the white keys, on the C, a middle C, and then the octave below. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up, down, down.
Hey, Ron.
One and the other.
Ron.
It's all about the rep.
I got to stop here. We've done that. You know what? You know what this reminds me of? When you're trying to explain to me over the phone how it's going to be so easy for me to learn the piano, and I'm all freaked out because music just. Here's what it reminds me of. Do you remember all the shows where people would call in and try to give me all their goofy analogies about horsepower and torque? That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah. Okay. But Kevin, that's how long I've known you. This is where you'll get it. It's all about the reps. Kevin,
you're not wrong.
See if you can do it. Just see if you can sit down at how long you can sit down at a piano and do that. Because what you're doing is you're learning the language, okay? And the more reps you do, the more you understand the language. And the other thing I got to tell you when you do this is you get a metronome and you set it to 120 beats a minute. And you sit there and do the reps, and your heart and your breathing and your fingers all sync up after about 10,000 reps.
So wait a minute. Now, I done everything that you're talking about, and I could play the hell out of piano, but I had a brother. He's done all the same stuff, and it never clicked with him. And I got a feeling
that's what I'm afraid
Kevin's
of.
going to be my brother.
That's
I got a feeling because when you explain this, it perfectly makes sense in my mind. And now Kevin's struggling with it here, and so I got a feeling Kevin's going to be that guy.
Hey, Joel, I'm not struggling at all. While he was saying that, I was typing a response on X.
You're gonna be that guy. You just are.
So here's why I'm a little freaked out about languages. I've always wanted to learn a second language, and I've always wanted to learn how to play music, and I avoid it. And I think I avoid it because I don't like failing. I hate to fail. I'd like to be really good at things, and my brain is telling me you're not going to be good at this.
But I'm telling you, Kevin, you're going to be good at it if you can sit down and do the reps. See how long you can sit there and just do that. Okay?
I know.
And then, hey, I play my mandolin for 5 hours straight every morning.
That's awesome.
And I do it before I even call the show.
Yeah.
Hey, I know about reps.
Yeah.
I know about reps. Hey, I also talk about this stuff 2 hours. I show up in the Chinatown band vet and talk about mandolin and ukulele and music. And when you were saying, I talk about how my mom imprinted me with music. When I remember it clear as day. She tried with all my brothers, but I turned out the best.
Yeah. Well, see, there's another lesson. This doesn't work all the
I
time.
have a brother that's a musician in Athens, Ohio. Yeah, everybody knows it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, we'll
ahead.
see. Yeah, we'll see.
Can I get
I just, there's something about this whole music thing that just freaks me out a little bit, and I don't know why. All right, we're going to go to Ontario. And by the way, this is our final call. If you want to jump in, there's still time, or we'll wrap it up for the week. Lloyd, what's on your mind?
Hey, Kevin, how are you? I had a question for Joel and Henry. I guess Henry's working too hard today.
He's sleeping.
Oh, there you go.
He's sleeping.
Anyway,
he's not working hard
the
at
first
all.
The first question I have for Joel is, how high of a weight have they got the iTorque set up for with the engineers at Volvo now? Are they up to pulling B trains in Canada, 138,000 pounds?
So I'm working with a guy that is doing it. It's not necessarily officially approved, but he's running a 247 iTorque, and he's running Super Bs up to, I think he said 108.5 is half of his loads and 140 is the other half.
So
and
247 rears. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And
Go ahead.
that's, I think it's a 14 speed, and he's doing quite well. He's in the mid sevens American on fuel mileage. So he's doing very well. Yep.
Well,
he said most of the, go ahead.
The reason I called, I got talking to the guy that started our company, I don't know, 45 years ago. He's just an employee now. His son and daughter own it. And his son used to be our head mechanic. And I tried to explain iTorque to him a couple of years ago. And he said, we're not getting effing Volvos because we got all freight runners. So then the other day, I got the big boss to pick up my package from Let's Truck. I ordered some cardio and a bunch of stuff. And I had it shipped to our post office so it didn't get ripped off by porch pirates at my house. And then he was kind of curious what I had ordered because I had to pay duty. And I said, he wondered how I heard about it. And I said, well, Kevin Rutherford, this guy's been doing this trucking business show on Sirius, and then he's got a podcast. And I said, one of the guys that's on Friday is Joel Morrow that has some deal going with Volvo, and he consults to test trucks and improve efficiency and mileage. And I told him about the 215 spec on the new Volvos with I don't know, with 455 or 500, and how they have the different 3 last gears you can run in the crawler gears. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I said, 55 miles an hour in underdrive, it's turning 950 in the top 3 gears. The engine's at 950, 1,000 RPMs. And he says, there's no way. And I said, and the guy's braking 11 miles to the gallon most of the time when he's behaving, how fast he's going. And he was just shaking his head. He says, do you know how much money that is a year from what we're averaging? I said, but we pull up to 6-axle wagons in Ontario and Quebec, right? So I said, you're not going to, but I said, if you got 7 instead of 5, because that's usually what I get. I've got a DD13.
Oh, that's huge.
Pulling that much weight.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I know it's huge. So I told him about iTorque Wednesday morning. I said, I went into his office. I said, Google iTorque. It'll take you to the Volvo site and all that. But then I'm wondering where you post your mileage stats, Joel. Do you put that on Facebook, or is that on your Alpha site, or what?
It's on Facebook. You can just go to my Facebook page directly. I've got it on LinkedIn. I put it on X as well. Yep.
LinkedIn, he's probably on, because Ron77, I don't know if he does Facebook or not.
Gotcha.
But so they'd both be under your name, would they, or under Alpha?
Yeah, no, they'll be under my name.
Yeah, okay, Joel Morrow. Okay, cool. Do you think you guys know anywhere where Henry posts his stuff?
He does some stuff out on Facebook. he doesn't post as frequently as I do, but I don't know if he is under a Freightliner specific page or not. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I told the boss there, I said like what they're doing up to 80,000 gross, and then I said if they get up to 105, I think I heard you say they run 226 or 229 rears.
247 up to 100, and I think they're good to. I want to say 115 is it's approved to with 247s.
Yeah, so far.
But I'd have to verify that. And unofficially, like the guy's running 140. In fact, he wants to go to 239 on his next build, or 239 or 231, because he said that it runs an overdrive with no problem on the flat with that heavy weight. So he wants to push the envelope a little bit. So we're kind of working on that to some degree. But he's killing it, and he's actually running a 6x2 as well. He's just putting up huge numbers with it for that duty cycle. So
our heavy stuff, like I'm on a tandem right now, so I brought a load out to the Chicago area and then reloaded, and I'm going back to Ontario. But most of our guys that are hauling the 5 and 6 axles, they're outloaded and coming back empty, or they're going out empty and they're coming back loaded with the different products we haul. And 80% of it is between, I'm going to say, Detroit and Montreal. And then there's probably 15 or 20 that runs Northern Ontario, where you get up into the bigger hills and poles and stuff. And I'm trying to, once I noticed that he was really interested in what I'll point him in some other directions just to show him what's going on. I tried to push this past him about, I don't know when this was, 2008, when I was running a C13. And at the time I was saying, we're running 390s on 22.5s. This is just stupid. Like, let's try 355s. And he didn't think it would pull or startability. I said, well, you've bought about 300 Freightliners in the last 30 years. So go to the dealer and say, give me a truck with these gears to try out. And hook onto a big wagon and find a big hill and see if it'll fall over and die, or if it'll actually do it. So,
okay, so the thing to remember,
thing
to remember on this with gear ratios, and everybody automatically thinks it's the gear ratio that determines how well a truck pulls a hill, and it is not. It ultimately it's horsepower determines how fast you go up a hill. The rear axle ratio just determines what gear you're going to do it in. So you may be deeper in the transmission a gear or two, which is no big deal on today's modern single countershaft transmissions, because you don't lose that much in efficiency. So it doesn't make any difference if you're 4 gears deep in the box. Who cares? It doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Yeah, I think I kind of sort of explained that to him. I didn't say it that way. And he says, well, yeah, it's like the old days when you had a 5 and 4. And smaller motors sort of idea. I said, yeah,
sure.
Well,
kind of. Yeah, kind of.
Right.
Kind of. Yeah.
Look, it's a lot to lay on somebody all at once. So, Joel, sometimes you
and
I
know that, Kevin.
And even the people that listen to this show that have been working on these things for so long, we have knowledge that sometimes we forget we even have, but it changes the way we think about things. And then we try to get this across to somebody, and you look at them and you go, why aren't you getting this? But it really is a lot to try to absorb all at once.
Well, it's the same. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say, to your point, Kevin, I know that on occasion I'll bump into somebody, I've never met before. They've been in the trucking industry their whole life. They've run traditionally geared trucks their whole life. I start talking about stuff and their head explodes. They're just like, you're so full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. And so I just got to kind of back out of things and, kind of walk away from the situation. But I get why they say that, because this is what they've been taught for decades.
Well, it's like Bruce says, always do it the same way for years and never change, sort of thing. I thought I had them sold on the Catalyst 2 years ago in December, and we run about 50 tractors, and there's only about a dozen that fuel on the road or like go down to Texas or run long haul or any of that kind of stuff. Most of the guys are home every night, so I said, treat our 8,000 gallon above ground tank we have with Catalyst, and then get the rest of us give us each a quart or a liter or whatever it is, and a way to measure it, and try it for a couple months, or just pick 3 trucks that do 3 different things and try it for 3 months and see if our idiot lights don't come on so much and all these other problems, which hasn't been happening as much as it has in the past. And I thought they were going to bite because one of our neighboring companies has about a 50 truck livestock fleet, and they're a dealer for, or what do you call a remote tune, and dealer for the Catalyst and for Pittsburgh Power. And both companies kind of know each other, and they backed out of it. They didn't go for it.
Huh.
So
All
I
right.
guess.
Gotcha.
Hey, you know what this reminds me of, and this is going to sound very insulting to some people. That's just too bad. Sometimes trying to explain this to people reminds me of the phrase, trying to explain the internet to an ant. And
Yeah.
And it's not as insulting as it might sound on the surface, but when you try to explain this to somebody who has never had a single thought about this, and that's exactly what you run up against, they don't have the base of knowledge to be able to understand it.
Right. Right.
In some ways, I didn't have the base of knowledge at the first time you tried to explain engine architecture to me. I knew how to build an engine. I know all the parts that are in there, but I didn't understand. I mean, the first time you started talking about piston speed, and I'm like, he's just talking about RPM. Why does he keep saying piston speed? But it wasn't. They're not the same. But I didn't, I had never thought through that. I had never had it explained to me. So in the very beginning, I didn't have the base of knowledge to understand what you were saying. You had to, in fact, you backed up enough and said, wait a minute, let me have this guy explain it to you. And that's when I did the class. And that was kind of the breakthrough. We went back to the basics and he explained it to me step by step so that I could follow along, and then it finally made sense to me.
Right. And here's the thing. And once you grasp what's going on there, and then you start to think about how we've done things in the past, it kind of opens up a bunch of doors. And I'm kind of hoping the guys over at Pittsburgh kind of have the same revelation that you had. You know, once you get your mind around this, I would imagine that their ideas on how they tune things and want to do things and gear things, it's going to fundamentally change.
I think so.
And change for the
Yeah,
better.
right.
That's my hope anyway. I mean, they're kind of there, but not quite. You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
And you know, sometimes you hear some stuff and you want to pull your hair out, and then other times you're like, yes, you're getting it. It's almost there. So it's pretty cool. Kind of cool to watch how they're going through. And I went through the same exact thing. You know, when the original engineer that was explaining this shit to me years ago, he had to be pulling his friggin' hair out because I was dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no clue what the hell he was talking about. And he literally would assign me homework.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
You do this. You know, if you answer these questions tomorrow, we continue to talk. If you don't, I don't want to talk to you. You know, that kind of, because he didn't want to talk to a dumbass, and that's what I was.
Well,
I mean, I was just plain dumb.
Yeah.
And so I done that work, and we could have conversations, and you know, the rest is kind of history. It looks like the whole industry is kind of moving in this direction now, and you know, everybody needs to kind of get on board with this and understand it, so it works for everybody.
Good stuff. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul, welcome.
Howdy. Just as Joel started talking about that new Cummins technology, I had a call come in, so you said something about the down speeding or something? A little bit?
Yeah, they changed their geometry on their connecting rod, their piston height, piston speed changed. I think they done some stuff on the crankshaft that needed to be done. And so on the newest engines coming out, their rotating internals look like they've improved significantly over what they've traditionally run.
So when will that engine be available? Or you don't?
I don't know. You know, I'm not well connected at Cummins. I know they made the announcement that they've made the changes. When that stuff comes out, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know, Kevin or Joel, if you've seen it, but Jordan at Pittsburgh Power, he put a couple of reels up about my little misfortune on my engine. So
No, I haven't seen that.
saved me having to make a phone call. Yeah, it saved me having to make a phone call. I saw the videos. So another worker. Well, I talked to Brian earlier in the day. So a new turbo and actuators was nearly 10 grand just for the turbo and actuators. So,
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah. Inflation.
So my bills, yeah. Well, my my maintenance costs for the year, I was down around 22 cents a mile for truck and trailer, tires, maintenance, and truck washers. Well, I think it's going to double easily. So, yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah, initially,
yeah.
yeah.
There, but
Yep, for
joys of trucking. So, yeah. Okay, I'll let you get next, man.
All right. Good stuff. Let's go to Idaho. Ken, welcome.
Hey, how are you guys today? I've been working on building the next gen Volvo, and I've been listening to you guys religiously and talking to Joel here and there on the show about it. And I think I'm down to my last question. What kind of wheelbase would be a good wheelbase? I pull a dry van and I pull a step deck.
What cab size?
Going with the big one.
Okay, you're probably going to be between 218 and 225.
Okay, so my dealer put me in a 227. I just wanted to make sure that was going to be okay to optimize things. So
yeah, you want it as short as possible. You definitely don't want it super long, because you're going to have some aerodynamic issues when you're pulling the van. Then with the step deck, it's obviously not a huge issue, but with the van, that can be a very big issue. So
okay, how about the fifth wheel slide plate? He's got it mounted right now on the specs where it's all I got is forward movement from center. Is that going to be okay, or is that good? Or
so how far past center can you go?
To the front, I think I can go a good 16 inches.
That should be okay then.
Okay, I just can't go to the back at all the way they've got it set up.
No, and you should be okay as long as it doesn't interfere with the clearance on your drop deck. I don't personally care about going back unless you've got a clearance issue. Yep.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all your help and all the input, and I'm looking forward to getting this truck. It's supposed to start building next month, so
that's exciting.
Oh, great. Yes, definitely.
So thank you, guys. Have a great one.
All right.
You too.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Missouri this time. Gerald, welcome.
Uh-oh. Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
Not much. How's it going, Joel?
Good.
Yeah. So I guess we can nominate you for president, to run for president. That'll solve it all, see.
Okay.
Well,
it'd be
kind of tongue in cheek, but I actually like the idea that Trump's thrown around that he's going to put Elon in charge of some new position around government efficiency. Holy cow. I mean, who's ever talked about government efficiency, and who better to do it? Elon came in and got rid of 80% of all the employees in Twitter and made it better.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That's efficient.
And then the Democrats, then the Democrats talked that, well, that was, I guess, their platform, but why don't they make their own social media thing like Trump did? Just create their own thing and then
the liberals
leave us alone, huh?
Or do you mean the liberals should do that?
Yeah, let them have their own social media platform, create their own thing.
They tried. It was a horrible failure. I can't even remember the name of it.
Wasn't a business.
But I got a bunch of invites to it. And I went over there, and it was so woke, it was insane. And now I can't even remember the name of it. I don't even know if it's still around or not. But that did not work out well for them at all. Well, and think about this. The other thing that has not done very well at all, and it's not such a big deal today, but there was a long, long time where all of the popular political talk shows were conservative. There were no real liberal talk shows.
Right.
And when they tried it, it just
Right.
didn't succeed.
Yeah, like
You
I
are
remember
correct.
Hardball, like with Hardball with Chris Matthews. I'd like to see Kamala go on that back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd get some some real word salads out of that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Speaking of
No, Kevin.
word salads, or just people who just haven't thought things through, I just saw. Oh, I wonder if I can get back to it now. Probably can't. I saw this thing. One of the late night comedian guys. Now I can't even think of his name. Jon Stewart, I think. Is he one of the comedian guys? I don't follow these guys, but I just watched this clip where he was making the statement that weapons or guns don't protect our free speech. And then less than a minute later, he made the statement, guns only protect the free speech of the people holding them. But yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
You're an idiot. Come on, did you really make those
Like,
two
what do you
statements
believe anymore?
within a
What do you
minute of
believe
each
anymore?
other? Yeah. Come on. That's the point. That's why it is
Just like
the
what
first and second
the director
amendment.
of the the director of the director of FEMA says, "Oh, they don't have money, but no, now we've got all kinds of money."
Right. Yeah, there's a reason it's the First and Second Amendment. We're allowed to criticize our government. We're allowed to say whatever the hell we want about our government, and we should. And then when we do, we're also allowed to keep a weapon on us in case that government comes after us. That really, if we want to get right down to it, that's the point of those first two amendments. We're allowed to criticize the government, and we're allowed to protect ourselves when we do.
Yeah, it's a speech that we don't like or don't agree with is the speech that needs to be protected.
Absolutely.
You know,
right.
That is, we may not agree with it. We may not like it. We may think that person's crazy, but you damn well better bet they have the right to say that.
Yes.
And everybody should support that. Whether we agree with it or not, you need to support that right. And when you don't, when you start talking this bullshit that they're talking now about, oh, you know, this is fake information and you shouldn't say that, you know, there's something fundamentally wrong when you have people in our government saying that you should. Now, you may say that that's not accurate, and here's why.
Absolutely.
I am all for that.
Yes.
But don't tell me I don't have the right to say it, because at that point, there is a huge problem inside the government when we've got people saying you don't have the right to say that, or that your fundamental right to free speech is a problem.
Yeah.
It's the government that's the problem, not what you're saying.
Exactly. All right, Gerald, what else you got?
Speaking of that, Joel, did you hear Kamala was on the Weather Channel telling one of the weather guys, well, don't be saying that it's a category 4 because they're the same, that you don't want it to, you got to be careful of what you say. Did you hear that? Telling the weatherman that
I watched that
that he
last
can't
night.
be.
She actually called the Weather
Yeah.
Channel and tried schooling them on how they should talk about a hurricane.
Well, you know what, Kevin? I think she fell out of a coconut tree.
In a hurricane.
Yeah, I think she fell out of a coconut tree. I think that's
fell
what
out of a coconut tree.
Yeah. I thought it was fake.
Wow.
And I went and
Wow.
verified. It was real. She actually called the Weather Channel and started schooling them on how they should be talking about this hurricane.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I'm at a delivery. I'm going to have to bail on y'all because it takes me a minute to get checked in here. But I think we had a pretty decent show today.
It was a fun show. I liked it. Good stuff. So
Yeah,
we're going to wrap it up.
absolutely.
Yeah. So good timing. You go deliver. Tell everybody we said hey.
I will do that.
All
I'll
right.
talk to y'all later.
All right. Perfect. Thanks. We are going to wrap
See you
this
guys.
up. Have a great weekend, and we will see you back here on Monday. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.